What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Lieutenant Nathaniel Flint of the Landship Scorpios, and today I'm talking about a book that I've wanted to talk about for a while since finishing reading it, and this video just keeps being pushed back, and I'm so excited to finally be talking to you guys about it today. Today we are talking about Dread Nation by Justina, Ireland. This book is good. This is very good. This is a book that 100% should be topping steampunk suggestion lists. I know it's semi-new, but it should be topping them. This will definitely bump down a lot of people's top 10s. I still have some steampunk book recommendations that are bigger than this, but I mean, this should be topping some steampunk suggestion lists. So let's start with spoiler-free stuff. Spoiler-free stuff. This is a good book. It has some ups and downs, and it has some strong points and some weak points. Some of the weak points is that the story I found to be a little lacking, as well as some of the characters I felt were introduced and then gone forever and not really brought back into the fold. However, it has some massive strong points. The setting is right on. The entire point of this book is to shine a ugly light of knowledge on the ugly truth of American history through the lens of a zombie apocalypse, and it is so good. It is so good. At the end of the book, it all works. It's a little bit of a journey to get there, but I mean, I love this. Had me reading through the entire bit. I was waiting every step of the way. I was there. I liked many of the characters that were introduced. By the end of the book, I liked the two main characters. I am on board, and I am so excited to get into the sequel. So, spoiler-free, thumbs up. There you go. Buy it. Put it on a wish list. Or if you've read it, this should be topping steampunk suggestion lists. This is a very good, powerful book. It shows just what alternate history or steampunk can do. Even the About the Author section is used to teach and to be an advocate for knowledge of people's stories. And it is just so freaking good. So it should go there. That's your spoiler-free review. Spoilers from here on out. There's your warning. If you haven't read this book, go read it. It is so good. I will forgive you for stopping this. Put this in a watch later. Go read it. You'll thank me, and we can talk about it together in the comments. Don't go into my comments either. I don't trust people. There are some things in here that shouldn't be spoiled. It's not story-breaking if it's spoiled, but like it should be read, it should be experienced, and a little bit, it should be on like summer reading lists, like honestly. So there you go, spoilers from here on out, and let's get into it. So we're going to start with some of the negatives and get into some of the positives. So let's talk about what I talked about in my spoiler-free section. So the story is a little lacking. So the story with this book is very simple. We kind of just follow this protagonist as life happens to them, and then towards the end they decide to do something about it. That is a very simplified way to describe it. In the end, I was left feeling it was a little weak. I feel like the book is doing so much world building that it kind of forgets that the characters have to do some things and have to have like an arc. And there's arcs. I mean, I'm not giving it crap. There are arcs. The story is not terrible. I have read worse steampunk books, definitely, but it's just a little lacking, and it was just a little disappointing. Within the end, I was just so happy to have read this book that in the end I was left a little disappointed that I'm like, oh, I wish that there's a little bit more. I have started in on the sequel, and I will tell you that the sequel starts right where this leaves off, and I was left with many parts of this should have been the ending of the first book. First book should have gone on a little bit longer. We should have had this thing that would have been heart-wrenching and terrible, and it would have like wrapped up this. I feel like, I'll leave that for a review of the second book, but I feel like this could have bled a little bit longer. We could have spent more time in the beginning setting up some things. The arc could have been a little bit clearer, but again, nitpicky, or at best, maybe it just didn't resonate with me. But it's not bad, it's just missing some marks. That being said, we follow our protagonist, Jane McKean. She is an attendant. They are women, black women, who are trained as young children to fight the zombie apocalypse. Now, Native Americans, blacks in this post-Civil War time are kind of forced to go to boarding schools of combat training to fight the dead. They are used as frontline soldiers, and there's a lot of racist science that are the reason for that. This book touches on a lot of things like the black man is stronger and better suited genetically for doing manual labor and fighting the dead, and they don't feel the same emotions we feel. And then there's some that are just batshit insane that are like, you know, black people don't turn into zombies when they get bit, or they have a higher resistance to turning into zombies when they get bit. So like, they're way better suited to fighting this horde because they have more of an immunity, or they're more likely to get this vaccine that makes them totally immune. So that's what we need to be doing, is forcing and experimenting on these people with drugs, and then we send them out to fight zombies. It's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win. It's terrible, terrible stuff, and it's all based on real stuff. Any history nerds are going to know all of these games that were played in slavery times, in Civil War times, and definitely when the creating of the Jim Crow South. All of this kind of bullshit was used, and it's all wonderfully showcased in this setting and in this world. Anyways, Jane McKean and her enemy turned frenemy, Catherine, we go through their beginnings at the school. We kind of learn what they do. We learn that Jane is a little bit of a rebel, of an outcast. She just wants to go home. As time goes on, I guess the main part of the story is how she kind of gets into trouble saving people, I guess. She's led by this rogue kind of love interest. Love interest. He is a love interest into looking for his sister, and that gets them in trouble with the mayor of Baltimore, which gets them sent west to a small little town. The town is a nightmare. It is South reincarnate. It is the Lost Cause incarnate, run by a crazy pastor and his sheriff's son. It is everything you would hate out of an ex-slave story western, and it's everything you love about an ex-slave story western. She is forced into all the same old racist, slave-esque like conditions that you would expect to hear about. You learn more about kind of how everything's falling. You learn a little bit more about this world. And in the end, she decides enough's enough. Something's got to be done. And that's the story. In the end, it falls her and her friend Catherine kind of becoming friends. And they end up figuring out what's going on at this town. And as you can expect, there's a little bit more going on in the town than meets the eye, and there's a lot that meets the eye. So there's a lot to discover. It constantly feels like it's kind of building up to something. And then in the end, they end up, spoilers, escaping the town, and you feel good about it. Like, it feels earned. It feels like we've been on a journey. It's not given away like the characters earn it. It is by their actions that they are freed from the shit show that is this book. And it feels good. But it feels like we spent so long setting everything up that I just wanted the story to continue. And I'm like, man, it's good. It's a book with a message. And that message hurts to hear. It hurts to recognize, but it needs to be said. It needs to be heard. It needs to be experienced. And I was left feeling just so good about this book. It instantly was like number 4 or 3 on my recommendations list. I loved this book. The characters are pretty good. We follow most of it with Jane McKean. We it's kind of a first person, her point of view through the whole thing. We are kind of led on a little bit of an adventure in her head. A lot of the speech, we'll say speech, but like the narration is 100% like through her point of view. That comes across perfectly. It really does. I never once questioned that I was following this character or like reading her diary or something. Like, it was very well done. The fear, the disgust, the hopelessness, the anger, it all comes across beautifully in Jane McKean. Her friend Catherine, you love to hate her, and then she just frickin' flips on you and you instantly love her. You're instantly on board with her. I thought her little, should I say this? It's a spoiler review, sure. Her little twist of being, well, I assume this is what her hint was, as being asexual. Perfect. Perfectly done. I really needed that from that character. It was really a heartbreaking thing. There's some parts of this book where you think she's getting the good end of the stick, and then she just has this moment in the mid-end, I guess, that just makes you understand that her experience is different. That doesn't make it better. And it was just such a good moment to experience and to think from a different point of view, especially with my own, I mean, I'm reading this with my experiences, with my prejudices, with my stuff that I put on the characters. That just flipped it on me, and I just wasn't expecting it, and it really made me think. And I loved it. The love interest, number 1, Jack, not for me. I never liked him. I knew he was going to be a little bit of a problem. They try to win you over with his devotion to his sister. 10 out of 10. This story excels in the side characters. Oh my, the villains love to hate them. They are everything wrong with our world. They are terrible people. I absolutely hate them. Love interest number 2, the doctor there, the scientist Gideon. He's a good character. I like that he is not cut and dry. He's not white savior. He is not the good white guy in the book about racism. He has issues. He has very glaring issues. He never does anything to hurt anyone. He tries very hard to be helpful, to be understanding, and towards the end, to be straight up like an ally. However, she writes it down. He says a lot of bad things. His whole thought process on the big picture is wrong, is skewed, and is white-centric. And I thought that was great. As a white person, I didn't feel attacked at all. I really thought that that was an important character for us to see, but important to see from her point of view, of someone who's trying, in another steampunk book about racism in a post-Civil War steampunk era, Gideon would be the protagonist. He'd be the white male scientist, steampunky, who's trying so hard to help. And this does a great job of showing how unhelpful he is and how much of a not Mary or Gary Sue he is. And I really like that. That works. And let's not, like, I can't name every side character, but I mean every one of the other fighters, girls at the store we see, like Big Sue, 10 out of 10. I love the other fighters she meets at the little town. Every time she name drops another character, in like 2 seconds, they have a personality, they have a description, they serve a purpose, it's great, and then they just left, and we just kind of drop them, and I hated it. I hated that. I really wanted to spend more time. I really wanted this to be the introduction of a new love interest. I really wanted this to be an introduction of a new ally who was going to follow them into the sequel, and I really, really wanted it. But man, man, were they really good. And that's just good writing. That's just good writing, Justina Ireland. Like, I was on board the whole time. All the random white folks in the town, every time they had a thing of dialogue, every time they were mad, like in a mob setting, every time they were just speaking in their terribleness, like, it was so well done. It is so well done. I enjoyed it immensely. Oh, wait a minute. Redfern. Redfern is a great character. I loved his character. I love to hate his character, and I hope he's got some type of redemption in the sequel, because I love to hate his character. I love to love his character. He's a wild card in this book, and let me tell you, it's not resolved. He's got a wild card into the sequel, and it's going to be fantastic. Setting, immensely amazing. Is it steampunk? Well, they have like motorized carriages that are called like iron horses or something, and it's because zombies attack and kill horses, cows, etc. So I mean, they had to adapt to that. That's really cool. A big part of the storyline is electricity being new into the world, and how it's made and generated and how it can be used to fend off the dead. That is a plot point in this book. A lot of things are thrown around, Tesla coils, this, that. Awesome fighting styles, sickles, and scythes, and gunplay, and swordplay, and things. Great way to do it. Great way to incorporate it into a steampunk book, and not just make it about, oh, they picked up the steam Gatling gun and just mowed down dead. Like, there is a very racist reason they're not given the good stuff. And they excel, and I loved it. This is a great example of a book with steampunk elements that is not relying on it. It's not sitting there relying on airships and time travel and all these things to tell its story. It could be historical fiction minus the zombies and some of the more fantastical things. You could replace zombies with a military uprising. You could just set this in the Civil War era. You still have a great story with all the same setups, same institutions. So it does not rely on its steampunk elements, but it has definitely got steampunk elements in there. It is a steampunk book, and it is amazing. It is one of the better steampunk books. So this is up there. This will be the bottom of many people's top 5s, but this deserves to be in top 10s. There is no excuse for this book not being in people's steampunk top 10s. It really isn't. You need to read and experience this book. And if you want a little bit of spoilers, I, as I said earlier, have been getting into Deathless Divide, which is the sequel. I am still a little bit into it. I've got a little ways to go. I will be doing a video on it. There's a lot of things I want to talk about in this video, but that is a spoiler beyond spoilers. So we will be holding that for the review of Deathless Divide. But if you like this book, if you liked this book, and you're not sure if you should jump into the sequel starts right at the end of this book. As I said earlier, this book kind of ends, and I was wanting more, but in the end I was like, yep, it ended where it was supposed to be. This book starts right here. There's more fact than fiction in this book. And wow, wow. Definitely. So yeah, if you can, ask your local bookstore for Dread Nation. Pick it up where books are sold. If your local bookstore doesn't have it, have them get it in. Support your local bookstores. But it is on Amazon. It is decently cheap on Amazon. Get a hold of this book, read it, review it on Goodreads and Amazon. It is such a good book. It deserves to be on people's top 10s for steampunk books. I know that a lot of them haven't been updated in 5-10 years for people, but this is such a good book. This deserves its spot in recommendations lists, and I will stand by that. It deserves this video and all good praise, despite whatever negatives I will have said about this. This is a good book. This is a learning experience. This is an experience. There's a lot of fiction. There's a lot of fact. And the more you look into it as a history buff, as someone who does steampunk, so researched a lot of these eras and a lot of these timelines and a lot of these areas, you'll learn that there is way more fact than fiction in this book. And it's scary. The scariest part of this book isn't the zombies or the shamblers. It is definitely the people, and it's the white people, and that's scary, and it's terrible, and it's good. It's good to read. It is good to experience. That's the review. I don't know, I've come a long way from numbering reviews or whatever, but like 10 out of 10, 5 stars, whole 9 yards. Justina, Ireland, amazing, absolutely amazing. Can't wait to finish the sequel. Can't wait to do a video on the sequel. It deserves its spot in the Steampunk Hall of Fame. It really does. That's my recommendation. Highly, highly recommend this book. Thank you guys so much for watching. And with that, that's really it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I like doing these videos. I'm trying to get more steampunk content on, and that has been taking the form of reviews. I don't mean to be a review channel, but I mean steampunk books is one of the biggest way we experience steampunks. Check out my other steampunk book reviews. I've got a few others. Steampunk World is another one that should be like up there in people's recommendation lists. So go over there and check that out if you liked this video. Check out this book. Let me know what your favorite thing is in the comments, I guess. Spoil it up in the comments. Let's gush about this book. Let's gush about everything. Keep the sequel out of it. I will be doing a video on the sequel when I'm done. So we'll save that for the comments of the sequel. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, like it so that it can find its audience. Share it around so that we can get the good word of this book and its sequel out to everyone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more steampunk content here on Landship Scorpios. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.